She was only 21, a young student from Vancouver who dreamed of traveling the world. But on January 31st, 2013, Elisa Lam vanished inside Los Angeles' most infamous hotel, the Cecil. 2 weeks later, her body was found in the most haunting place imaginable, floating inside a rooftop water tank, the same tank that supplied water to the guests below. The case shocked the world because before she disappeared, surveillance cameras recorded Elisa behaving strangely in an elevator, pressing buttons, hiding in corners, moving as if chased by something unseen. Some said it was a psychotic break. Others whispered about ghosts, curses, even dark forces tied to the Cecil's bloody past. This is the disappearance of Elisa Lam. What really happened at the Cecil Hotel? Stay with us, because the truth behind this mystery is more disturbing than anyone imagined. Elisa Lam was born in 1991, the daughter of immigrants from Hong Kong who settled in Vancouver, Canada. Her parents ran a busy family restaurant, and Elisa grew up in the rhythm of Chinatown life, juggling school, responsibilities at home, and the expectations of being the eldest daughter in an immigrant household. On the surface, she looked like any other bright young woman. She was artistic, loved fashion, and often wrote about her thoughts online. But her inner world was far more complicated. From her teenage years, Elisa struggled with mental health. Doctors diagnosed her with bipolar disorder and depression, and she took several medications to stabilize her mood. She wrote candidly about her battles in her personal Tumblr blog, Nouvelle Nouveau, where she shared her fears, her hopes, and her longing to live fully despite the shadows of illness. Her writing revealed a sensitive soul, vulnerable yet determined to connect with others. Elisa often quoted authors, shared music lyrics, and reflected on the pressure she felt to succeed, even as she admitted she was scared of failing herself and disappointing her family. Travel for her was not just an escape, but a way to prove that she could live independently. In late January 2013, she decided to embark on a solo trip down the west coast of the United States. San Diego, Los Angeles, Santa Cruz. She wanted to see the places she had read about in books and on the internet. She promised her parents she would call them daily to let them know she was safe. For the first few days, she kept her word. By January 26th, she arrived in Los Angeles and checked into the Cecil Hotel, a historic building in the city's downtown. To Elisa, it was an affordable place for young travelers. But locals knew the Cecil carried a sinister reputation. Since its opening in 1924, the hotel had been linked to suicides, murders, and even serial killers like Richard Ramirez and Jack Unterweger, who had once stayed there. The building stood at the edge of Skid Row, a neighborhood marked by poverty, addiction, and homelessness. For decades, the Cecil was a magnet for troubled souls. Elisa, however, seemed unaware of just how heavy the hotel's history was. Her first days in Los Angeles were filled with exploration. She visited the San Diego Zoo, posted photos on social media, and wandered the streets of downtown LA. Friends later said she seemed excited but a little anxious, as if trying to push herself beyond her comfort zone. She was traveling alone for the first time after all. In her online posts, Elisa revealed flashes of vulnerability. She worried about strangers judging her. She admitted to feeling overwhelmed. Yet she kept moving, determined to make this trip meaningful. That determination would bring her deeper into the very heart of Los Angeles, into the walls of the Cecil Hotel, where reality and nightmare would soon collide. Beneath the surface of a young woman's dream trip, a shadow was already forming. Elisa was walking into a building with a past so dark that some wondered whether tragedy was inevitable. From the outside, Elisa's trip appeared adventurous and exciting, but beneath the surface, cracks were already visible. Friends back in Vancouver knew Elisa often struggled with episodes of depression. She sometimes withdrew from social life, disappearing into her room for days, only to later resurface with bursts of energy and enthusiasm. Her bipolar disorder meant that emotional highs and lows could arrive suddenly, overwhelming her without warning. On her Tumblr, Elisa wrote openly about her inner battles. "I'm used to being sad," she admitted in one entry. In another, she confessed that medication made her feel like a zombie, detached from her true self. Yet she clung to the hope that life outside the bubble of her illness could still bring joy. Traveling alone to Los Angeles was her attempt to challenge her limitations. But the Cecil Hotel was a dangerous place for someone vulnerable. Its walls had witnessed decades of human despair. Residents included addicts, drifters, and those with nowhere else to go. In such an environment, Elisa's fragility stood in sharp contrast. To some, she may have looked like an easy target. To others, she may have appeared simply out of place, a young student dropped into the heart of a city's shadows. Hotel staff later reported that Elisa initially shared a hostel-style room with other female travelers. But within days, complaints were made. The other guests said Elisa's behavior was odd. She left strange notes, locked doors behind her, and frightened them with erratic speech. Management eventually moved her into a private room. This decision, though routine for the hotel, is one of the most haunting details in retrospect. Alone, Elisa was more isolated than ever. What exactly was happening in those days inside the Cecil? Some witnesses claimed Elisa seemed cheerful, visiting bookstores and chatting with staff at a local shop. Others noticed her anxieties creeping through, moments when her smile faded quickly, like flickers of two Elisas coexisting. One determined to explore, the other weighed down by invisible chains. Her final post online reflected this duality. On January 29th, she wrote about feeling unsettled, hinting that her mind was not entirely at peace. She admired strangers she met, but also felt intimidated by them. She longed for connection, but feared rejection. For Elisa, every encounter was charged with both hope and dread. This unstable balance between illness and ambition, isolation and connection, grew more fragile as her days at the Cecil continued. In a city as overwhelming as Los Angeles, in a hotel infamous for its darkness, Elisa's cracks widened. Could the tragedy have been prevented if someone had recognized her struggle sooner? If her parents, friends, or even hotel staff had truly understood the depth of her illness? Might Elisa's story have ended differently? Or was she already caught in a spiral too strong to escape? January 31st, 2013. It was the last day Elisa Lam was seen alive. That morning, she spoke with her parents in Vancouver, reassuring them that everything was fine. It was a ritual she kept faithfully throughout her journey, but by evening her call never came. The following day, when her parents could not reach her, alarm bells rang. Elisa was always reliable, always checked in. Something was wrong. The Los Angeles Police Department was soon contacted, and a missing person investigation began. But in those early hours, Elisa had already slipped into a mystery that would haunt millions. The most chilling piece of evidence emerged quickly. Hotel surveillance captured Elisa inside an elevator around midnight on January 31st. What the footage showed became infamous across the internet. Elisa pressed multiple floor buttons, then moved to the side of the elevator, hiding in the corner as though someone was following her. She peered out into the hallway, stepped back inside, then waved her arms in strange, almost fluid motions. At times, it looked as if she was speaking to someone unseen. At other moments, her hands twisted in unnatural gestures. Finally, she stepped out of the elevator, never to return. When the video was released publicly on February 13, it spread like wildfire. Millions of viewers around the world dissected every second. Was she on drugs? Was she experiencing a psychotic break? Or was there something supernatural lurking in the corridors of the Cecil Hotel? The elevator itself behaved oddly. Its doors remained open unusually long, as though frozen by an invisible force. As days passed with no trace of Elisa, the hotel became the center of attention. Guests complained of low water pressure and a strange taste in the tap water. On February 19th, nearly 3 weeks after Elisa vanished, a maintenance worker climbed to the roof to inspect the water tanks. Inside one of them, floating lifeless, was Elisa Lam. She had been there all along, her body submerged in the same water supply used by hundreds of guests for drinking and bathing. The discovery was horrifying beyond imagination. How did a young woman manage to access the locked rooftop? How did she climb into the heavy metal tank, nearly 10 feet tall, without help? And why did it take so long for anyone to find her? The autopsy results added more confusion. There were no signs of trauma, no evidence of sexual assault, and no drugs or alcohol in her system other than her prescribed medication. The cause of death was ruled as accidental drowning, with her bipolar disorder listed as a significant factor. But for many, that explanation only deepened the mystery. Some began to question whether Elisa was truly alone. Rumors spread that someone at the hotel might have harmed her. Others believed the Cecil's dark reputation had claimed another victim. Online theories ranged from foul play to paranormal intervention. The elevator video became the centerpiece of endless speculation, each frame scrutinized as if it held the key to the impossible. A 21-year-old woman had set out on a journey of self-discovery, only to end up in a rooftop water tank, her life cut short in the most bewildering of circumstances. The tragedy of Elisa Lam became not only a police case, but a global obsession, a mystery where reality and nightmare seemed to merge. Elisa Lam's death might have been ruled an accident, but the world refused to accept such a simple explanation. The fallout was immediate and intense. Online forums, true crime communities, and mainstream media dissected every detail, turning the tragedy into one of the most debated mysteries of the decade. Elisa, struggling with bipolar disorder, had suffered a psychotic episode. In her altered state, she may have wandered to the rooftop, climbed into the tank, and accidentally drowned. To them, the case was heartbreaking, but tragically straightforward. A young woman overcome by her illness. Another group insisted something darker had happened. How could Elisa access the rooftop, an area supposedly secured with locked doors and alarms? How could she lift the heavy water tank lid on her own? To these skeptics, foul play seemed undeniable. Some pointed fingers at hotel staff. Others believed a guest had targeted her. The lack of surveillance footage from the roof only deepened suspicions. Then there were those captivated by the Cecil Hotel's haunted reputation. The building's history of suicides and notorious residents, like Richard Ramirez, seemed to confirm for them that Elisa had fallen victim to a curse. The eerie elevator video, her strange hand gestures, the long pause of the doors, became proof for believers in the paranormal. Was Elisa interacting with something invisible? Was the Cecil Hotel itself a place where darkness lingered too strongly to resist? The fallout was not confined to speculation. In 2015, Elisa's parents filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Cecil Hotel, arguing that it had failed to ensure her safety. They claimed the rooftop should have been inaccessible and the water tanks properly secured. The case, however, was dismissed. The court ruled that the hotel could not have reasonably foreseen the chain of events leading to Elisa's death. For her grieving parents, the legal battle offered no closure. Meanwhile, the internet frenzy reached extraordinary levels. Amateur sleuths created timelines, analyzed the elevator video frame by frame, and even tracked Elisa's final movements through her blog posts. Some went too far, accusing innocent people. A musician who had once stayed at the Cecil was falsely labeled as a suspect, harassed online for years despite no connection to Elisa's death. The tragedy highlighted the darker side of digital detective work, where obsession blurred into cruelty. Years later, a chilling discovery surfaced. Elisa had been writing in her journal throughout her trip, and parts of it were revealed in the investigation. The entries showed her wrestling with overwhelming thoughts, swinging between hope and despair. For some, her words confirmed the theory of mental illness. For others, they suggested she had sensed danger closing in. What remained undeniable was that Elisa's story had outgrown a single explanation. She became a mirror reflecting society's fears of untreated mental illness, of urban isolation, of predatory danger, and of supernatural evil. Each theory said more about those who believed it than about Elisa herself. And yet, behind every debate, one truth was easy to forget. A 21-year-old woman had lost her life, and a family had lost their daughter. The courtroom verdicts and internet conspiracies could not erase that human cost. The story of Elisa Lam lingers because it is more than a single tragedy. It is a mirror reflecting fears that belong to all of us. We see in Elisa the fragile balance between hope and despair, between the desire to live freely and the weight of invisible illness. Her disappearance at the Cecil Hotel reminds us how quickly the ordinary can turn into the unimaginable. For her parents in Vancouver, Elisa was not a mystery. She was their daughter, curious, intelligent, vulnerable, and full of potential. The world may debate endlessly whether her death was an accident, foul play, or something supernatural. But for her family, the loss is simple and devastating. A life ended too soon, questions left unanswered forever. The internet obsession surrounding Elisa's case also exposes something unsettling about us. Millions of strangers dissected her final moments, transforming private pain into public spectacle. Some sought justice, others sought entertainment. And in the chaos of theories, accusations, and conspiracy videos, the human core of the story, a young woman's struggle, risked being forgotten. What really happened to Elisa Lam at the Cecil Hotel? Perhaps the most honest answer is that no one will ever know completely. The autopsy closed the case with the words accidental drowning, but those words cannot contain the layers of mystery, sorrow, and fear that continue to haunt her story. Maybe the Cecil's dark reputation added to the legend. Maybe her mental illness created confusion and vulnerability. Maybe there are details that will never surface. What matters is what we choose to learn. Elisa's case forces us to confront how society treats mental illness, how easily the struggles of young people can be dismissed, how dangerous urban isolation can be, and how quickly a life can unravel when no one is there to recognize the signs. Who is Elisa Lam in your heart? A victim of her own mind? A young woman failed by those around her? Or someone caught in forces beyond comprehension? Her story demands that we do not look away, that we carry her memory not as entertainment, but as a reminder of how fragile life is and how important compassion can be. And if you want to explore another family tragedy that shook America, one that revealed secrets hidden for decades, watch our next documentary right here. Because behind every headline, there is always a human story waiting to be told.